Welcome to BW Businessworld and BW Education's Leadership Summit and Top Education Brands Awards. Today I have with me Mr. Vikram Sahoo, who is the Director, Research and Strategy of Sai International. Thank you for joining me, Mr. Sahoo. My first question to you is that if you could tell the audience, in your own words, a little bit about Sai International and your own personal journey with it.
Sure. So I'm Vikram Sahoo. I'm the Director of Strategy at Sai International Education Group. Sai International Education Group is a group of educational institutions that was actually started by my father back in 2008. Today we run a large number of educational institutions, our flagship school being the Sai International School, which is ranked as the #1 co-ed day boarding school in the country by the Education World India School Rankings. We also run the largest standalone play school in the country called Sai Youngren with about 1500 students. In addition to that, we run a fully residential school called Sai International Residential School, and we also run a full-fledged commerce and business college for students in the age bracket of 18 to 21 called the Sai International College of Commerce. I actually have been a part of the groups since the beginning, not fully involved right from the beginning, but starting to get fully involved right now. I graduated from Shriram College of Commerce 6 years ago, SRCC, post which I worked with Bain & Company, which is a management consulting firm where I extensively worked with large educational organizations on their strategy, operations, expansion, both within India and outside. Post that, I moved to Caterton, which is one of the largest consumer-focused private equity funds in the world, where I extensively evaluated education startups, both edtech and offline, in India across different stages of funding. Currently, I work with one of the largest education groups in Southeast Asia that runs more than 20 to 25 K-12 schools across Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Thailand. All through this, what I've tried to do is understand the best practices of education, both from Indian organizations as well as organizations outside of India, and try and leverage some of this in our home group of institutions, Sai International, with the aim of providing world-class education to students in Odisha as well as in India.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Being part of this, having so many different institutes under the belt, one of the biggest things we hear about is the gaps between, school and higher education academia. What are the advantages of having multiple different organizations under one group? And how do you manage to kind of make sure that the gap between school and college isn't too bad?
Sure. So I think what fundamentally happens, and I think this is a very appropriate question, is that there is a large disconnect between K-12 schools and universities, and between universities and jobs. If you look at the number of students who graduate out of universities today, in a year there are roughly about 7 to 8 million students who graduate out of universities in a year, of which more than 60 to 70% are actually unemployable. And that happens because the kind of skills that traditionally we have been teaching in schools and we have been teaching in universities has not been ideal and practical in terms of what the job market really needs. And that's where the disconnect starts. The disconnect starts as early as between preschool and K-12 schools, between K-12 schools and universities, and between universities and jobs. I think the advantage of having institutions that cater to each part of the segment is that we are able to bring holistic and homogeneous learning across these different institutions so that we can provide all-round and holistic development to each of our children, which becomes very crucial to create a very, very well-rounded individual. For example, if I have to talk about our kindergarten school, right, we try and differentiate the way we offer our offerings in very different ways. For example, we call it the 4 parts of our pedagogy that help us differentiate, which is how do we teach something, what do we teach, who do we teach it to, and who teaches it. So when it comes to how do we teach it, our instructors and teachers are trained to use the multi-sensory approach of learning, which essentially very simply means in order to teach any subject, use all 5 senses, because every student or every child is inherently strong in one of the senses. For example, someone could be a kinesthetic learner where they respond better to physical activities or role play. Someone could be an auditory learner where they respond better to sounds. Someone could be a linguistic learner where they respond better to reading and writing texts, and so on and so forth. So that is whenever we teach a particular topic, we try and imbibe all the five senses into it. When it comes to what do we teach, we have a very, very high focus on life skill training beyond the obvious academics that is taught in every school and which is a part of curriculum. For example, if you have to teach students, and these are students in grade 1 or grade 2, about the value of money or the importance of saving money, what we will do is essentially run a boot camp for them where they are given a certain amount of money. They'll create products by buying different items or ingredients using that money and then sell them in the open market and generate profit out of it. So we teach students who are 8 years old, 9 years old, the value of money by actually setting up a small business of their own. So fundamentally at every level we use a very experiential and a practical approach to learning in order to focus more on life skills in addition to what is being taught through academics. Similarly, when it comes to who teaches it, we use a dual teacher model where every section has a mother teacher and a subject teacher, where the subject teacher is an expert in the specific subject while the mother teacher is an expert in building relations with the students. And that's how we have a dual focus of both social and relationship building as well as academic learning. And these are certain ways through which we have tried to bring about a more 360-degree and a holistic learning to every child, which helps us bridge the gap between our kindergarten school, our K-12 school and university and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I just wanted to also add, because there's so much transformation going on in the education sector right now, with the NEP 2020 or the National Digital University, a lot of big things are happening. What is your take on these things that are happening, and how have you been able to kind of implement some of them into your own institute?
Sure. So I think what is really commendable about the government today is the increasing focus on education, whether it is early education or it is higher education. So if we talk about the National Education Policy 2020, I think they've brought about fundamental changes in the way education operates in India, and that will bring about a large transformation in the way we run education in the country. For example, for the first time since the independence of India, the NEP is actually focused on early childhood education, which was one of the topics that we were discussing inside the room today, which is how the government has created a four-stage delivery model through which early childhood education will become universal and will be provided to each and every child in the country, be it through Anganwadi centers in communities or Anganwadi centers in schools or pre-primary sections in existing schools or standalone play schools. So the delivery model has been very well defined. B, the curriculum has been made more standardized for early childhood education, which will make it very easy for schools across the board to actually adopt some of this and impart it to their students. Similarly, with the Modi government recently allowing foreign universities to now set up campuses in India, I think this will bring about a huge change in the way we offer higher education in India, because India has so many talented students, right? But a lot of them cannot go to the US or cannot go to Europe or any other nation or continent to study because of the lack of funds. Now, when you have an Oxford University setting up campuses in India, or let's say you have a New York University or a Harvard or a Stanford coming and setting up campuses in India, you open up a plethora of new opportunities for students across all age groups. That and B, it also increases the kind of competition that existing Indian private universities are facing today, which automatically will force them to upgrade their skills, upgrade what they teach, upgrade the kind of digital infrastructure that they use, upgrade the kind of pedagogy that they teach. And I think all of this will bring about a fundamental change in the way we provide education in our country.
Absolutely. I just have one more question to you, and about scientific educational groups too. Can you tell me, what is your larger vision and mission, or rather your philosophy of education itself?
Sure. I think, so our larger vision and mission, of course, is to ensure that every single child in India gets access to education and gets the opportunity to actually go ahead and do something large in life through the medium of education, because what we fundamentally believe is that every child in India today, every kid who is born in India today is extremely talented, is extremely smart. The reason some of them cannot go ahead and do well is because they do not get the kind of opportunities that they deserve. So the larger vision which my father set out, which Dr. Vikram Sahoo, when he started out the schools in 2008, was to provide high quality education at the cost of what other schools are offering or what other universities or institutions are offering, to every single child in India so that they can learn to bloom, so that they can learn to love education. And that's what we have tried to do so far through the institutions we have built so far, and which is something that we will continue to do through the institutions that we go on and build in every part of the country, so that we can provide that sort of education to all students.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us and for being here today at our event. I really hope to hear more from you and see you more at our events.
Thank you. Thank you so much.